Hey, good morning, everybody. We're starting just a little bit early to make sure that we know what we're doing here. This is our first webinar on YouTube, so we're getting used to the tools and the broadcast things that we have to use here. So we're just trying to make sure we've got it all set up correctly. So if anybody has joined, go ahead and give me a chat and let me know that you can see me. I'm going to ask some other people. So we'll just wait here for a few minutes until a few people join us, so that we aren't just talking away to nobody. We don't want to get started and give out too much information without everyone here. There's somebody. There's Joshua. Good morning, Joshua. Great. Thank you for letting me know you can see me. All right. We've got a couple more people. All right. So we'll just give a little more time. Hopefully everybody's doing well this morning. And we're going to start off by just kind of giving an introduction, and then we're going to show you a couple short videos on some of the key features of the program, and then talk a little bit about how we do what we do, and see if there's any questions after that. So we'll just give it maybe another minute or so here. Just looking at my clock to see who's coming in. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and dive in, and hopefully people can join as they want to. So good morning again, and thanks for joining, you guys. And today we're talking about the SignalQual and SelfQual portions of the program. And so just to let you know, so that if you're doing your BDC filings with us, you get all these features for free for the term of the filing. So if you sign up for this filing, then you'll have access to the program for at least 6 months for free. And then if you do the next filing, that just continues. SignalQual and SelfQual are both available for purchase outside of the BDC filing. So if you're not doing your BDC filings with us, then you can certainly purchase it. It's pretty inexpensive, $79 a month for the program, for the RF side of the program, to get you all the features that we're about to show today. So a couple of things I wanted to make note of. And so ours is not a typical RF propagation tool. So when we do the propagation, we are using obviously propagation models and the antenna patterns and all that good stuff. But we're not doing this area mode propagation like most tools do. So you're not going to see these big like green, red, yellow, pretty plots on a map type thing that you're used to seeing. Instead, what we do is we go out to every point that we're considering. So every address that's in the system that you want to look at, and we're doing a point-to-point analysis basically from every access point that can possibly hit that. We'll go over this a little bit in the video, but basically what we're trying to do is determine the best AP that can service that, not just necessarily the best signal strength from any AP without you knowing really where that's coming from. So we're not just doing some kind of best server. We're actually looking at things like the throughput, the signal, of course, and then things like the distance, and that kind of thing. So there's a kind of a hierarchy of criteria that we look at to determine which AP is the best. Now, we also can show you all the APs that we looked at, of course, and so if you don't like the one we chose as the best for some reason, maybe it's a little further away, even though we think it can provide better throughput, you could certainly make that determination on your own. So we give you lots of tools to be able to do that analysis. So with that, we're going to jump in here, and I'm going to start one of these videos. First, we're going to look at SignalQual. And SignalQual is basically the RF side of our platform. So if you're using BDC, you get to it by going to the mapping. If you're just a SignalQual customer, it basically shows up, when you log in. So it just brings you right to that map. And we've released a couple of new tools. We've changed the look of it just a little bit, the way the tools are arranged and stuff. So we just want to kind of walk you through those real quick. So let me go ahead and start this video. I'm going to go ahead and turn me off. And welcome to Regulatory Solutions. My name is Cameron, and I'm going to be walking you through this quick demo today. This demo is really just to show off the profiling capabilities of the SignalQual program. And just so you know, the SignalQual program is available to you if you are a BDC subscriber free of charge. It's part of the application, and you do get to use it for the 6 months following the period that you've paid for. So there's no extra charge for that. If you're just a regular SignalQual customer, all of this still applies, with the exception that when I show the fabric points in here, those fabric points aren't going to be there because we can't show those to you unless you have a license with CostQuest for your area. So we will be adding the national address database points instead for those. Just something to be aware of. I want to talk a little bit about how we do our propagation and how it's different from other programs. We do not do an area mode propagation. So I know a lot of people are used to seeing propagation maps that are big, nice colored blobs, pretty pictures on a map. And those might be useful if you're doing like broadcast technology or maybe mobile network design, but that's not what we're doing in this industry. For the fixed wireless industry, we're really just interested in certain points on the map. And so what we do is we go out and look at any individual point, and then we look at all the access points that could possibly cover that location. So I'm going to show you quickly what we do with this. So here's our access points. What we're showing is the just a kind of a pie-shaped representation of the access point at each location here and which direction they face. And these are based off of the beam width of the antenna. So they're kind of simplistic shapes, but they get the idea across pretty easily about which direction your antennas face and how wide that beam width is. Now, these are all uniform radius. These actually aren't kind of the coverage areas per se. This is just kind of a representation to show you where things are on the map. And they are color-coded by frequency. Now, if we look at the radius that was entered for these access points when they were put into the system, we can see this looks a lot different. So this is kind of the coverage extents of these and really the areas that we're primarily concerned with inside this main 3 dB point, or I guess a lot of these antennas now are 6 dB, but whatever the antenna manufacturer tells us is the beam width of that antenna. This is how we're creating these shapes. So what we do when we look at a point, let's go ahead and turn on some points so we can see that. We're turning on some fabric here. So at any given point in here, we would look at one of these and then look at every one of these overlapping shapes here. And actually we go beyond these shapes a little bit because we are using antenna patterns. So we are actually looking at anything within that pattern, right, that goes out to this radius. So this is just a real general, kind of representation to show you where these things are. So at any given point in here, we're going to look at every single one of these overlapping APs to see which one's the best server and also which ones can service it, even if they're not the best server, or maybe they can't service it. And then you can tell why they wouldn't be able to service it. And the way we rank those is really, it's based on several criteria. We do prioritize license band over non-license band. After those bands, we go to throughput because that's obviously the most important thing for an ISP. And after throughput, we go to signal. And then after signal, we go to distance. And so there's kind of a hierarchy of how we qualify a given point. Let's go ahead and turn these off so it's not so busy. And let's just go ahead and just kind of randomly click on one of these and run a qualification and see what that looks like. So just before we do that, I did want to point out a couple of things on the map. We do have some new tools up here. We have this simple mode, and in simple mode, we're only going to show the profiles that do qualify to that location. So if nothing qualifies, it's going to pop up an alert telling us nothing qualified, and that if we want to see all the profiles, we need to be in advanced mode. So I'm going to turn off the layer control just so we have some more room to work with here. And then let's hit qualify. It does take a second because we are actually going out and rerunning each one of these profiles. We don't store these. We do actually rerun them every time you click on one. And this one, we got fortunate because there's actually three sites that do qualify, or three APs that do qualify to this location. Let's go ahead and turn off this so we can see what that looks like. I've also actually set the map so that it won't show the qualify APs, but if you turn this on, you can see the representation again of those APs that do cover this and how they overlap. It does get a little busy, so I'm going to turn them off. One other thing to note, that these lines that represent the profiles on the map, they are solid if they are qualified, and they are dashed if they do not qualify. Obviously, in simple mode, we're only ever going to see solid lines on the map. If we looked at the advanced mode, which we will in just a minute, you'll see that there probably are some dashed ones as well. Now, the other thing to note here is that on the left side, this gray window pops up for the AP that we consider is the best server for this location. And that right now is because this AP is in the 3665 megahertz. So that's what they consider licensed, or licensed by rule, possibly category. So we said, okay, if any of those qualify, we're going to make them the best server. Now, if we look at these other ones, here's another one. This one is in 2 gigahertz. So obviously this one's probably crowded as far as frequency goes. It does service this still, but not quite as well as this one, obviously. And also it's not licensed. And then if we look at this green one here, we can see that it's also, actually that's, I think, the one that we are looking at for, yes, that's the same one. And then let's look at this brown one and see what it looked like. So it's also an LTE site. It's just further away, so the signal's a little bit lower, but it would also qualify to this location. Now, a couple of things over here on our map, on the profiles. As you move your mouse along the profile, you can see where this is on the map. And so if we zoom in just a little bit here, you can see this crosshair. So as we move along here, this crosshair moves along. And if you were to show something like your aerial hybrid, you could see exactly where that clutter is. You could also turn on the clutter layer to see where that is as well, what's in the path. So that's what we have. Now, if we look at if we do the same thing again in the advanced mode, let me go ahead and cancel this. And then let's just pick this again. I think that's the same side. If not, it's pretty close. So here you can see we're looking at all the points, or all the APs that possibly can service this, instead of just the ones that qualify. And you can see here that we have some dash lines now. And then we also have some that are dashed and solid, so are double dashed. They kind of look more like a double dashed from the ones that serviced before. And that's because we have APs that from this tower that service this, and also ones that do not qualify that are still within the beam width of these antennas. So if we look at this and see why it didn't, so the brown part didn't qualify here. And that's because it is 5 gigahertz and it just didn't meet the signal criteria. So we had to be below neg 70 to reach their throughput tiers that they've set up for this. And it was only neg 73. So that was higher, of course, than neg 70. So it did not qualify. So if we want to look at one of these other ones, we can see what happened here. And actually, because we clicked on the map and there's actually an overlay there that's hidden, it's showing us all the things that are possibly there at that location. But if we do just click on the profile, it will show us this profile and all the statistics from there to see why it didn't qualify. And again, this one's at neg 105, did not meet his criteria for throughput, so we did not qualify to that one. Okay. Now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and cancel this. The other thing we want to just show real quick is the ability to qualify any point on the map, not just a location that's in either the Fabric or National Address Database or something. And that is through this tool that's Qualify Site to Point. And what this will allow us to do is set our CPE elevation, and then we can click anywhere on the map. So we're just going to click a point at random here. and we're going to wait for it to go out and do the analysis from all the towers that are around that could possibly service this location. And here we are. Since we're in advanced mode, we're seeing all the ones that didn't qualify again, but here's a link that did qualify. And so if we look at this, we can see how it did. So this one is an LTE site that only has to hit neg 90. We were at neg 77, and so this one did qualify. So that's just another way to be able to qualify things on the map. So if you were just looking at buildings, say in an aerial hybrid view, and you wanted to see if they qualify, you could just come down here, for instance, and click on a rooftop. And we'll wait for the qualification to come through. And here we go. Yes, we can service this person. There is a solid link here. If we put this in simple mode and do it again, maybe let's just see if this house here will qualify. Then we get 2 that will qualify to that house there. One other thing I want to show you is our building database. This is something that's new to the program. And we're just going to pick something at random in here so we can see if we can get a qualification. And we can. But one of the things I wanted to show you was our new building database. So we have acquired a building database that's basically 2-foot resolution buildings, and that includes the elevation. So it's very interesting to see along this path. You can see these little spikes in the built-up category here. These little red spikes, and those are the buildings. So if we just try to get close to one, I know that this is a longer link, so it's harder to tell, but certainly we can see that there's a building right there along this path. And then as we go along, there's another building right there. And you can see that those are built up along the way. So the difference here is that prior to this, there was just one category for urban or built up. And it included everything: streets, parking lots, buildings, everything. So it was really difficult to set an elevation for that category because we didn't want to create giant walls out of streets or giant blocks out of parking lots and things like that. So if you said, well, most of my buildings downtown are average, 30 feet or 40 feet or something like that. Well, guess what? All your streets and parking lots are going to be 30 feet and 40 feet. So it was really difficult to get an accurate clutter, loss reading for these areas. But now with a building database, we can flatten out that category, just set it to 0 and rely on the buildings here in the building database to provide that elevation when we encounter those objects. So it's much more accurate, and we believe it's actually better than using LiDAR data because LiDAR data sees everything as an obstruction, a solid part of the terrain. And that's really not that great. If you're just trying to get pure line of sight, okay, fine. But if you're really trying to determine where the obstructions are and you don't want to see your trees and things like that as solid obstructions, then you really do need just a terrain database and then a clutter database and ultimately a building database also to get the most accurate representation of what's really there. So that's why we believe that this is a little bit better than using LiDAR data, especially most of the companies that are out there doing it right now only use the first echo return, which does present everything as being a solid object. And that pretty much concludes our demo for how we're doing our profiling. Hopefully that's helped you out and explained things a little bit. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so that was the basics of the SignalQual features for doing profiling. Obviously, there's a little bit more to the program. We have lots of layers and things you can add and do some more analysis. At this point, I'm going to jump into the SelfQual portion. And just so you know what SelfQual is, we're gonna describe that. But basically, it's the portion that goes on your web page and allows you to basically self-qualify customers. So And Brian's asking me here, can I show a live address lookup? Yeah, we can do that, Brian. Let's get through this next self-qual video, and then we will do the address lookup, and we'll go from there after that. We can do some live demonstrations on the program as soon as we get through these. So the self-qual is effectively a, let me go ahead and open this video up so that we can see it. Give me one moment. Hello and welcome to Regulatory Solutions. And I'm playing it too soon. Sorry, I should have had this queued up, but we'll get it here. So while I'm doing this, self-qual is basically it goes on your web page. It's a form and a template that you can drop into your web page, and it effectively allows your customers to self-qualify. So you can style it however you want. All this will be in the video as well, but basically it uses the same propagation studies that we use in the background. And then it presents your customer with either a yes, you can qualify to one of our sites, or if we don't know if they can qualify, we never tell them no. I just want to make that clear. That we'd never tell your customer that they don't qualify for service. If for some reason we don't think they can qualify to any of your APs, the message that we send them basically just says, somebody will be reaching out to you soon, thank you. And then you can customize those messages too. But our methodology is to never tell your customer no, because we just don't know 100% of the time if that's going to work. Certainly there's a lot of environmental factors that go into things that we just can't take into account 100%. So that's why we do that the way we do. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. Give me just a second while I adjust this area to make sure that everybody can see it, and we'll go and start now. This demo is going to walk you through the features of SelfQual. And what SelfQual is basically just a form and a map that you can drop into your web page that allows customers to come in and self-qualify. And this works the same way that the qualification does in our regular SignalQual program, where it will go out and look at every access point in your network that could possibly qualify the given location and determine which one is the best one for that. The other benefit of using this is that this form will tie into one of many billing systems and actually input into your billing system the new lead with an account number, and it will also add a note into that as to which AP is the best if we determine that one is the best. Also, this form can be styled however you want. This is basically just the simple styling that we have for it. Once you get this template, you can drop this into your page and change how the form looks, how the web page looks, of course, anything around it. It's just a simple CSS page that you can use to adjust, or you can apply your own CSS if you already have forms on your website. So this can be completely customized. You don't have to use this format. This is just our templated format for you to either drop in if you want to make it easy, or put it in an iframe if you want, or you can tear it apart and put it in however you want. The only thing we ask is that you don't change the JavaScript, because that's how it communicates with our system and then goes and puts things into the billing systems. So the billing systems we currently support are... Sorry, I wanted to make one caveat to that, saying don't change the JavaScript. There are some alert messages in there and some other things like redirects after we submit and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware. You can change those things. So how it responds to people when it gets something back, certainly those could be modified. We just ask that you don't change the calls out to the APIs. So I'll continue the video now. Visp, PowerCode, Sonar, Splinks, and UISP. And so any of those we can drop customers into or leads into. And then this form also sends you an email every time we get a result. So let's go ahead and just put something in here. I'm just going to put, this is actually a working one. And I'm just going to put test to make sure they know it's a test. And we're going to go ahead and put in let's see, 3750 Mountain View. Of course, if I can spell here, now I can just select it. And once you select an address, it's going to drop it right on top of the house. If it's not quite where you want it, you can actually move this dot around a little bit. So I can say, oh, well, I really want to check to see if it's on this peak of the roof right here. And if you have an apartment or suite, you can put that in. I'm just going to put in my own information here, just so we have something there. And I'm just going to put this as a test, so everybody knows this is a test. And then we're just going to hit check for service. Once this checks for service, it's going to let us know. And so there's an alert that pops up. Now you can modify this if you want to do something other than set an alert. If you want to add your own congratulations or send them to a different page, whatever you want to do, you can change that within the JavaScript yourself. Right now, it just says, good news, it appears we can likely service your location with speeds up to 50 by 10. And that's because we look at the access point and we know the speed tiers. And so we're actually looking those speeds up and we can report that to them. So then you say, okay. And what this should do is take you to another page. We don't have it doing that just for the demo purposes, but this can take you to another page. It can, if you want to build an application that allows them to go ahead and sign up if they were able to get service. Some people have asked about potentially scheduling. That's all up to you if you want to build that around our form. But just to let you know, it did do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at the email. I should have received an email. And sure enough, here it is. And hopefully this isn't too small for you to see. Maybe if I reduce my screen size here, it will help to expand it on the video as well. So you can see this says Cameron test lead added through the web page, and it's sending it to whoever was the people that needed to get it. And it has your name, your address, the coordinates, the phone number, email, the notes that they submitted, right? It's going to say submitted from whatever your site is. And then it's the note that was submitted as well. And then the qualify results. It was served. The best AP is this one. And the speeds they can get from that are these speeds right here. Now, if it did put it into a billing system, in this case, this customer does not have a billing system set up to put it in. It will also tell you the account number that was inserted into that billing system. Also, one more feature, there is a map link here. If you click that, it will just take you basically to Google Maps and let you see it on this map. So if you have a CSR who's looking at these emails or something like that, they can definitely look at this and see where it is. And that might help them to get something scheduled or whatnot. So that is pretty much what SelfQual is all about. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to reach out and ask. Thanks again. Okay, so that was the SelfQual portion. So if there's any questions, now would be a great time to ask. And I'm going to bring up, while we're waiting to see if there's any questions there, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our live instance, and so we can show you how to qualify to a specific address. So go ahead and do that since I don't see any questions popping up. So this is just a live version, and Brian asked me if we could just go ahead and bring up an address. So I'll put something in here like 300 Elm, maybe it will find that. And so it's basically just doing the same lookup address that like we just saw on the video for the SelfQual. So we use the same system here. And so we can go ahead and look. I know they're in Paris, so there's nothing coming up on Paris Street. So let me just do something like 300 Main and see if that comes up. There's one. Okay, so what this does obviously drops a pin, very similar to the way our SelfQual worked there, but this drops a pin, and it's obviously in the middle of a park. Not sure why we'd qualify there, but we're going to try it. So if you just click this, you can hit qualify. It's going to go out and run the qualification, and we'll wait a couple seconds for that to come in. And you can see we did have some qualifications here. So there were several APs that qualified. One thing I didn't show in the video was that when it qualifies, it does, the first time you're doing this, after coming into the map, it does show the these same kind of pie shapes or sector shapes that we have on the map for each AP that covers it. But when there's a bunch of them, that gets really busy. I personally like to just turn those off, and you just do that over here in the qualification, or I'm sorry, in the layer control under qualification. And so at this point now we're just looking at the qualification lines there, and we can just escape, and this is the one that qualified. So if we want to see what the signal was, we can look at this. So this one says it's going to get 100 by 11 or 110 by 11, and that's because it reached this throughput tier here. It was set at neg 65, and we were below that at neg 59, and so this would actually be a pretty good go, we would call this. So that's how you basically look up addresses. There's some other things you can look up here. If you are doing BDC, we do have locations, so you can look those up by either address or by the location ID. You can also look up your subscribers or APs and towers. And we have this all in another video that we are going to be putting up on YouTube. So another question Brian is asking again also, can you show the green dot serviceable locations? Yes, we can. So what he's talking about here is under our locations here, once we run the fabric, or if you're just a SignalQual customer, not a BDC, we run these against the national address database. But in either case, we have under locations the serviceable locations, and so this tells you how many there are. If we turn these on, basically they show up. I don't think I clicked that, but once we turn these on, if they show up as green dots on the map, and for some reason my program has decided to quit responding. That's always fun during the middle of a webinar. So I will try to, let me refresh this page and see if we can get it to do what we want. I think I only have, about 100 browser windows open outside of this. So we'll try to get this to refresh. In the meantime, let me know if there's other questions that we can answer while I'm trying to get my browser to respond. So, but the serviceable locations, basically they work the same way as the red dots did that we saw in the video. When you click on one of the green dots there, it effectively will bring up the same profiles that we saw before. So I'm going to try one more time to get this to come up, while you guys can watch me instead of the desktop that I'm working with here. Sorry, I'm sure this is very entertaining. Okay, let's just log back in again. Okay, and I will move this so that it's covering the screen. Okay, so also just a couple things that we've done here. We've changed this menu around a little bit. We have some more settings here. In fact, while we're here, I'm just going to go through these SelfQual settings. So the SelfQual stuff obviously can tie into multiple billing systems like we said before. So this is where you would set that up. You can set up your API settings here, so you can tell us which platform you're on, and these are the ones we support. The version, obviously, and these change depending on what parameters are required for which software you're using. So if I change this to VISP, obviously we have some different criteria for VISP. If I go to PowerCode, there's some different stuff for PowerCode. So you can come in and set these up for depending on your billing system. And then obviously your notification, if you want to send these to multiple people, you just use a comma separated list here. So let's go ahead and go back to our map, and hopefully it's going to cooperate with me this time. And we'll go ahead and turn on these serviceable locations. And it seems to like to crash on that. I'm going to go ahead and shut down my my browsers. But anyway, I think you guys get the idea on that. We've seen what it does, so it's really not much different. So I don't know if we have any other questions, or if anybody has some other things that they would like to ask about how to use the software. I don't see anything popping up. So one thing we do want to remind you guys of today is that BDC filing is due in basically a month. It's the 1st of March, so from today you have 29 days. So if you're going to be using us again, or you've used us in the past and you want to use us again, we would highly encourage you to go ahead and get any of your data to us. We do need new subscriber data. If you haven't had any network changes, then basically you just go in, create your new period, and then just go check all the boxes for for the APs and the towers and all the stuff there, the fabric, to make sure you have a license and that kind of thing. And then we need you to upload your new subscribers file to us. So obviously subscribers are probably the thing that changed the most, and so those are the things we need to be able to do the subscription part and that kind of thing. Also, if your RF settings have changed, we'd like for you to go in there too. We also have a new alert system in the RF settings that tells you to go ahead, to actually enter the AP. So if you're missing any APs with technologies and speed tiers, it's going to actually alert you to that. That's one of the things we find that gets left out most often, that prevents us from running your stuff for the BDC. And Brian's asking one more question. How can I show how to add users? Sure, we can show how to add users. Let me go ahead and restart this again. I'm not sure why I'm having so much trouble with my browsers this morning, of course, just when you need them to work. So I'll bring this back up in 1 second. Go ahead and log back into it. Okay, so let me get this on the screen where we can see it again. Okay, so Bob asked me to show if we can show how to add users. And so you do get unlimited users for the software. And basically you just come in here to admin and users, and you can see we have a couple of users here. We can add a user. So basically you just enter their name, their email, their password, basic things. And then roles, you can set up these roles. With the admin role is a default role, can't be removed, but you could set up other roles. And to show you that, I will come over here, and you would just add a role here, right? So there's just a few roles or permissions that you can put in for these people. Obviously, if you're not a BDC customer, the BDC column wouldn't be there, but this allows them to make changes for billing, which is billing for us. It's not it's just if they can modify that, the credit cards and stuff like that, the network, users, packages, and the company. So there's really not that much, but you can restrict some access for people if you don't want them changing things within your system. And that's basically it. And let's see if we have something else here. Like your company, this is basic information. And then, of course, your filer data for your BDC stuff here as well. So let's see, Brian is asking, show them how to do that on the dashboard. And yeah, we'll go to the dashboard. So this is the dashboard that you're going to see when you come into the program. It's basically these tiles showing you what's complete and what isn't complete. So obviously everything's complete for the most part for this demo. But if they're not complete, instead of having this nice green checkbox, they're going to have either a red X or kind of a yellow warning triangle in them saying that the yellow is basically it's partially complete. We can go and just take a look at how you do complete those. So once you've imported your data or put it in manually, there's these check boxes on these sections where you just come in and check if you've entered all your sites. The same thing for APs. You just come in here, you can check that, and then that lets us know that you're done. And then we actually have our own little internal status sheet that ties into all these and lets us know when these get checked. So when our dashboard goes green for your ISP, then we know it's time to run that to get the results, and then we can do the filing. So when we see that all green, we're good. So make sure you go in and check your boxes once you've got your stuff in. So Josh was asking, website really isn't working. Can't get location to show line of sight data. Well, that's interesting. I will check on the back end of that, Joshua, and just see maybe that's the problem. We're having some kind of issue there. I can definitely check that out as soon as we're done with the webinar and make sure that everything's functioning correctly. So, in fact, I can just restart it right now and see if that helps us. And let's go ahead and check that out while we're here live. See if that helps me bring up any more customers or our serviceable locations. Yeah, something there is not quite right. So I'm going to have to check that out, Joshua. I apologize for that inconvenience this morning, but we will get it resolved as soon as we're done. So Brian also asked if we can show how, show how to check the settings for a new submission. And I think we just went over that. So there was a couple of the same question there. So yeah, definitely something going on. So we need to get checking that out real quick. But are there any other questions about how to do anything within the system? I'll wait here just for a second. Joshua's all good. Okay. All right. Well, guys, I appreciate everybody joining. We do have a manual. I am not going to open that right now. That's kind of boring to read through a manual, I think. But there is one online that describes how to do all this stuff too. We do post videos typically when we make kind of major changes and things like that. So we try to. I think you get notified if you subscribe to our channel. You should get notified when new videos go up. So if we make major changes to the system, they will be there. Brian's asking if we can go over the RF parameters. Yeah, we can do that real quick. So if we look at our settings again under our network, we did change this. It used to just say settings, but now we call it RF speed tier settings. And what we do here with these speed tiers is we're basically asking you to tell us what your speed tiers are at given signal strengths, right? So if you can install somebody at neg 65 and get 50 by 5 here, that's what you should be putting in, right? We could use things like MCS rates for radios, but what we find is in the real world, those don't always kind of pan out the way that the manufacturers say that they do. And so what we want is your real world experience, or what you guys are doing. Like when you send your tech out, you say, look, don't install this if it's below neg 70. We're just not going to be able to provide reliable service. So that's what we want to see here. So if you can provide 50 by 5 at neg 65 and 20 by 3 at 70, that's what we're really looking for. We also want you to put in your max CPE gain. So if you guys use like a 23 dBi dish fairly often or something like that, then that's what you should be putting in here. If you're just using kind of a standard CPE that's like around 15 or so dB, then go ahead and put that in. Your standard height, for the most part, the FCC wants us to stay around 23 feet. That's what they put in their documentation. So we encourage you to do that if you're doing BDC. Obviously, if you do something like install almost everybody, at which like this customer does. So he puts 40-foot poles almost everywhere he goes because most of his customers are buried in trees. And so if that's really your kind of your standard, then go ahead and put that in. But if you're doing just kind of a basic install rooftop, 23 feet is probably where you want to be as far as the BDC is concerned. It'll probably cause less questions after the fact, and we don't like dealing with questions. So I'm sure none of us do. And even though if they do, just by the way, if they do come back and ask questions, we do support you on that 100%. So we will get you responses and things like that. So, and then this signal noise ratio, if you don't know what this is, 10 dB is kind of a good number to put in. We do have this pop up here to show you, to tell you what these things are about. So it's pretty easy to go through this form. We do encourage you also to set up different technologies. So this one is kind of a Wi-Fi based radio and chipset. This obviously it's not pure Wi-Fi, but it's still using those kind of Wi-Fi chipsets. We have 4 technologies right now. So the FPGA, which is kind of the Cambium stuff. Wi-Fi, this would be most of the Ubiquity stuff, unless you're using something like Wave, which we will probably be adding soon. Tirana is its kind of own special case as well, and then LTE stuff. So those are the 4 technologies you have to choose from right now. And so you can set up different tiers for different technologies. So obviously, some of the Wi-Fi stuff is not quite as fast as like the Cambium stuff, and obviously Tirana has some speed advantages over those. So even if you're operating in the same bands, you want to set up those bands for those specific technologies. So you can see here, I don't know that he has any. Oh yeah, so here's a 5 gigahertz unlicensed, and this technology is Tirana, but he also has another 5 gigahertz unlicensed for his Wi-Fi based stuff. So obviously those tiers are different. He's got download 110 by 11 and 92 by 11 here, and if you look at his Tirana, he's got 500 by 50. So obviously those are very different. So we want to make sure that we take into account those technologies when we're running those path studies from those given APs. So that's kind of it. I think, Brian, that was your last one. So if we don't have any more things to show, then I think we're going to go ahead and call this webinar done. Thank you guys for joining, and we will make sure that we take a look at the slowness in response there. So we're doing this again on Friday. If you got both invitations, this is basically just going to be a repeat on Friday, just for people who couldn't make it today. So you don't necessarily need to join. And if you know somebody who wants to watch these and can't join, go ahead and share the link. We will be posting this up on the channel as soon as this is done.